year to the Cross League Referees course. There's sort of 47 slides, and there'll be some slides will be just self-explanatory, others will need a bit of explanation and perhaps some discussion when we get a group together. But for now, it'll be me, Des Foy, presenting with Declan Foy.
That's me.
Some comments. Adding some comments.
Yes, very good. Okay,
so Cross League, written with an X, but pronounced Cross League. It's a limited contact rugby league version, and this is our referees course that we've put together for 2022. There's the hashtag League for All. So what is Cross League? Cross League is a limited contact, small-sided version rugby league. It can be a stepping stone out of and into full contact rugby league, and a social version of rugby league with the emphasis on skills and fun. And do you want to go through that?
Yeah, so just to sort of explain whereabouts it is on the sort of spectrum between touch and full contact. It's much closer to touch than it is full contact. The tackle is made by touching the ball. There is contact allowed, but it's very, very limited. I think that we probably need to emphasize that quite clearly as referees, that it's limited contact rugby league and not semi-contact or contact, which people can get carried away with what is allowed and what is not allowed. There is a specific mode of play that we've tried to cover off with as many words as possible, but there are also some fantastic examples of how to play the game, and you'll sort of see them through the course.
Yes.
We move on?
Yep, move on.
All right.
So who can play a Cross League? Cross League can be played by anyone 16 or older, irrespective of gender, experience or fitness levels. All players should register with the RFL, and that's to play Cross League under the RFL. You need to be registered, and we've set the age limit as the youngest is 16, but obviously in a club setting, you could have your under 14s playing your under 15s, or your under 10s playing your under 12s, or a mixture of all your kids who are playing. So it doesn't mean that Cross League is limited just to 16 and up. It can be played by anybody really. But the registered version with the RFL, if a club's using Cross League, their players should be 16 or over, and they should be registered with the RFL.
Yeah, and I think that the point about being registered is like a pertinent one right now. Obviously, last year was the first year people had to pay for a social membership with the RFL.
Yes.
And I think there was maybe some question marks over whether that is worth it, but we can assure you it is. There's more and more things on the Cross League calendar. There's more opportunities to play, whether that's just locally at your club or in this Grand Prix that we have, or now a World Cup, which, we're looking to add a Lionhearts team that might tour. There'll be more than just the Grand Prix competition to play in. There'll be lots of open competitions. So we're trying to build a calendar that will be almost all year round and have something for everybody. We move on?
Yep, move on.
All right.
So the ethos of Cross League. The Cross League tackle, as Declan's mentioned already, is made when the defender touches the ball in the possession of an opponent. Contact is limited to defenders trying to achieve this, and ball carriers trying to prevent this. This creates an environment where rugby league specific skills can be practiced, but the risk of injury is kept to a minimum, because we don't have collisions like you would have in the full game, but we do have some amount of contact. There'll be cases where there'll be people fending off, there'll be people trying to reach across the body to touch the ball. So there will be some contact, mainly arms on arms, but as we said, there's a sort of a limited amount allowed.
Mm-hmm. I think as a referee, from a referee's point of view, it can be very difficult to identify intent. But certainly I would encourage a referee to call it as they see it. If they do recognize intent, you know, even if they're
Yes.
only 90% sure that there's intent behind it, it is worth stepping in and saying, no, that's too much contact. It goes over the level of contact, and giving a penalty or having a discussion. Because at the end of the day, the game is designed not to give people an opportunity to have a little bit of a shouldering match with each other. It's more designed to allow people to get a better timing of passing, to run better angles, and play a game that's much closer to rugby league in terms of open play. So
Yes.
the contact part of it is really important, because we're trying to police a how you complete a tackle and give people as much scope to play with the ball as we can. But what we're not doing is allowing people to go out and run into each other in the sort of style that maybe they did when they were younger, or just maybe they never have before, but they would really like to. There's other games for that. This is really more
Yeah.
about running and passing.
Yeah. Okay. Move on. So cross league encourages fun and appreciation of good play from your opponents, but it is also competitive. So there will be festivals, as Declan's mentioned, Grand Prix events and test match series, potential tours, stuff like that. So referees need to be consistent in their application of the rules, and that's why we put this together, and the little videos that we put together as well, just so that we know that the game is being played the same. And obviously that's a problem for rugby league throughout the world. Everybody needs to be playing to the same set of rules. So people, cross leagues no different. People need to be playing to the same set of cross league rules wherever the game's being played.
Yeah, my only comment here would be that the game, like one of the things that we have done since this has been going is we've filmed a lot of games, and they all look very similar. The level of play is similar, the level of contact is similar, but occasionally, you know, due to people either not knowing exactly what you can do or misinterpreting what you can do, you end up in a situation where the rules are not applied consistently, and this stop that from happening. Which is more or less what you just said, but I'll carry on. These are just a bit of an example of what's going down around the place. You might want to tell us which is which.
Yeah, some of those pictures from the Sheffield, what was going to be the World Cup last year. It'll be, we are having an event this year at the World Cup, but this was like last year's. We went ahead with it, even though the Rugby League World Cup didn't go ahead. So that's the sort of top picture on the left and the middle picture on the right. We've a couple of clips of the top and bottom on the right, Saddleworth Rangers, it looks like to me. We've got Brighton and Hove in the middle, and Warrington on the bottom left. And then this middle one on the left-hand side is our successful trip to Hungary. They've used Cross League to try and promote the game over there. And we took some lads from St. Anne's and an Irish team over there, and really enjoyed it. It was great. It's a great place to visit.
And I think that that's probably the most important picture here, because you know, if we can have Hungarians, Irish lads, and St. Anne's lads playing in Hungary, where some people are speaking different languages and very much in different accents, and have like a competition of very consistent games. I think if you look at the
Yes.
videos there, the game was refereed almost like to the letter amongst the sort of the participants and the referees. Then obviously it can be done anywhere. You just need to make sure we all know what we're doing.
Yes. So Cross League encourages referees to participate in social cross league games. What we're trying to do is to get encourage referees not to just see themselves as the referee and the us and them thing. We'd like them to enjoy playing rugby league as well under the version of Cross League. What we also have, which might enable this to go, is to happen, is that social games can be controlled by captain's agreement. So each team appoints a captain, who sets the defensive line, keeps the tackle out, basically acts like a referee, and they make calls about errors and infringements. You'd have one on each team, and they would they act as sort of referees. It's similar to how you would control a game in training, a game of touch or whatever, but we just formalised it a little bit. So I don't know how deep we go into this captain's agreement on this next slide, Dave. Do you?
Yeah, I'll flick it on. We don't.
No. Okay.
Okay, well, could I just make a little point about that? I think that
Yeah,
it's
go on. Then. Go.
important to align
You can
yourself.
edit this.
Well, I don't think there's probably any need. I think we can probably carry on
Okay.
talking. I think the thing with this captain's agreement is very important way of learning the game for everybody, because you can see how the game sort of develops as you go, as you get a little better at it, and as people start to become more tactical with it. So yeah, I think coming in absolutely cold as a referee, having only refereed other games, then try to referee competition across the might be difficult, but being part of a club or team that is playing week in, week out, you get a much broader understanding of what may or may not happen. So
yeah, the calls that keep happening, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. So what we've said is that cross-league referees will apply the international rules of rugby league in full, unless there's a specific cross-league rule for that instance. What we're doing here is we're sort of building cross-league referees on top of people who've qualified as referees with the RFL or whichever governing body they're with. So that's what we're saying. It's the basic rules of rugby league. We don't need to mention everything. We don't need to say if a ball goes forward, that's a forward pass, things like that. It's the basic rugby league rules, but if the specific rules for cross league, they obviously they're applied rather than the international rules.
Yeah, I think that obviously there's quite a few cross league specific rules in the rule book, but we haven't mentioned like if you punch someone in the face, that's a penalty or anything like that, because we are building on top of international rugby league rules. That's not to say that you can just start applying international rugby league rules if you forget what the cross league rule is, or if you haven't looked at the cross league rule. But I don't think that would be a great use of this like ethos here. No. But I do think that something we could use, that should be used as a sort of a guide when refereeing.
Yeah. So we've said the duration of games, standard games in a competition setting run for 13 minutes. We've tried to keep the number 13 motif point. So 30 minutes in total with no half times. But as we say, it can be flexible and changed by agreement with the teams. You could have 20-minute games. It depends on your setting, how many people you've got. If you've got a load of subs, you might want to go for longer, things like that. But just to sort of set the sort of standard duration of a game in a competition setting is 13 minutes.
Yeah, like we've said before, you could, and we have indeed actually played full pitch with 11 aside. You could go as far as playing full pitch with 13 aside. Depends on your playing group, I suppose.
Yes. So next we're moving on to specifics about the game. So in-game points, it's 1 point per try. Try scored in different methods. So you've got the conventional touchdown, including diving. You are allowed to dive, or by touching both feet in the in-goal area, which is similar to the NFL American football ruling. And that would even go for catching a kick, as long as you're onside when the guy kicked it. If you catch it, you don't have to catch it and then put it down. There's no risk of you being tackled before you get the ball down if you get your feet in the in-goal area. We do have an optional conversion rule that we don't use that often, but it is there in the rules. So that would be after try scored, and player will have an attempt at kicking at a goal for an extra point. So just that's a sort of an accuracy of your kick. If this rule is used, because that's giving you a point, your tries increase to 2 points. So if you score a try and kick the goal, you get 3 points. If you just score a try, you get 2 points.
Yeah, I think
We
from a
use-
referee's point of view, it's just to be aware of that somebody could request that, and then you would have
Yeah.
to police it, like where are they taking the kick from,
Mm.
in line with where they scored it. Where is the goal? It's a 3-meter goal in the middle of the field. But again, it's an optional rule and can be interpreted in different ways.
Okay, so now we're getting into specific things, as I said. So misconduct, cross league must always be considered as only a semi-contact version of rugby league. Whilst fending off a defender is permitted, a fend off to the face or neck above the shoulders is not, and therefore should be penalised. Also, whilst the defender can grab at the ball carrier in order to enable them to get a touch on the ball, defenders must not attempt to make a full tackle that brings the ball carrier to the ground. Any conduct contrary to the ethos of the game can be considered misconduct. This will also result in a penalty against the offender.
Yeah, so just
we
on
do-
that, it's probably worth pointing out, I think limited rather than semi. I think there's, I mean, you could argue that those two things mean the same. It is up to us as referees to sort of make the game more palatable to everybody by allowing open play, and that's what we should be looking to do. So if you do end up getting two teams who are constantly running into each other or trying to get away with making a full tackle, or any kind of like increased contact with the shoulder, or pushing or pulling or barging or charging, which you'll sort of see later, like those things need to be stamped out, and like there are mechanisms in the rules in order to keep the ethos alive. So we'll probably get to that in a bit. Have you got anything to add to that?
No, that's fine. Yeah, we'll go into it more of the videos and stuff, won't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a few slides now on the tackles. So this is what tackle 1 means. It doesn't mean it's the first tackle in a set, but it's the first slide. So a tackle will be effected once the defensive player has made contact with their hand or arm on the ball that is in the opponent's possession. The tackler should call tackle, but even if it's not called, where the touch on the ball is obvious, the tackle is deemed to have been made. Other forms of contact with the foot, the leg, the shoulder are considered dangerous and should be penalised.
I think that's for itself. So
it does, yeah, because there's more to go as well with that. So tackle 2, honesty is to be encouraged, and even though rule bending is part of most games, it is to be discouraged in cross league. If a defender says that they made a tackle on the ball and the ball carrier disputes it, the referee will, unless they're 100% sure that there was no tackle made, accept the defender's call. And there's no arguments, oh, you never got me, and all that blowing up or anything like that. You just say, I'm taking the word of the defender. If the defender's lying, well, hopefully his teammates will sort of get onto him, because what you get is that everybody would probably start lying. So you just need to sort of just be firm that you think you got it as well. Like obviously, if somebody's 5 meters away and they shout that they got the touch, they definitely didn't get the touch. So you're 100% sure that they didn't. So you can just tell them not to be claiming a touch when they didn't make one. But yeah, we're just trying to encourage that bit of honesty, and it makes the game flow a lot better rather than that, because you could easily, I've seen it in tag and touch as well, you could easily have disputes every tackle. Did you get the ball away before the pass and things like that? So so that's why we've put the onus here on having faith in the honesty of the defender.
And then and the other thing would be that it's 100% sure there was no tackle. So if you're only 99% sure there was no tackle, you would still call that as a tackle. And I think really we're looking for a good clean game with lots of clear passing and beating people cleanly. We're not looking to sort of ruck our way through the middle and then a sneak over from 5 meters out. That's not really.
It's not about fine margins and the extra 1% and all that. It's clear cut quality rugby league that we're looking for. Okay, so tackle 3, the third one. So when a tackle's been called, the defender may keep their hand on the ball for a short period to slow the play of the ball down. But this cannot be done as a second effort. So do we have videos of this? I think we do, don't we?
Possibly.
We're just
I'll try and bring them up in a second. But the main thing here is that it's all done in one motion, and it's not done by a secondary defender or a third defender even.
yeah, and that does sometimes happen. If you get to the tackle and you're not quite sure had the ball been touched by your teammate, there is a temptation to sort of wrap them up, hold that ball and stop them playing it. Now, if that person has said they made the tackle, the person on your team, then you're not really allowed to that. That's, if you think of just from the international rules perspective, that's interference at the play of the ball. The tackle's already been made. Your second effort is like messing around on the floor or leaving your hand in and stopping the ball being played. So the first person that gets there, if it's all in one motion, they can wrap the ball up and they get a couple of seconds to help their teammates get onside. But if it's done as a second effort, either they touched the ball and they went in afterwards and made that grip on the ball, or they touched the ball and a teammate wraps the ball up, that's not allowed.
Yeah, just to sort of like to explain why not say, oh, there's no wrapping the ball up. That's not happening at all. The sort of the way touch goes and the way a lot of games go, really people are looking for the fastest play the ball possible. So what we didn't want is that people would volunteer the touch, so actually touch the ball off the defender themselves and then get a quick play of the ball. This holding the ball in as sort of combat that. So we have sort of a much more rugby league like scenario when you do play the ball, and the speed of the play of the ball and the distance between the players when they're receiving the ball is all sort of as accurate to the full game.
Yeah, so and what we're sort of saying on that, can you just go back? What we're saying on that is that a team that does make those sort of tackles, excuse me, a team that does make those sort of tackles will benefit, just as a team that in the full game would slow the play of the balls down, they would benefit as well from giving their teammates time to get back on side. But if they push it too far, then they get penalised. But it's a sort of like a USP, unique selling point of cross league, in that it makes it different to touch and tag. So that's why we've added it in. So tackle 4 then says, in the interest of safety, a tackle can also be called when a player is surrounded or enveloped by defenders, or if they fall to the ground. So that means if their knee or elbow touches the ground. So we don't make any, if somebody stumbles, we don't have to pile in and still try and touch the ball. We just, that counts as a tackle. They can get up as slowly as they want and play the ball. But yeah, as we said, it's in the interest of safety, really.
Yeah, and then the other thing, again, getting back to the ethos of it being clean cut rugby with good angles and good passing, that being surrounded by defenders and saying enough is enough. There's been too much, like it's wrestling here. Like that is why we said that you're developed, you're also tackled. There may not have been full touch on the ball, but there's too many bodies involved in that contact area for it to be considered play on.
So next slides now are on the marker. So what we say is that there is
marker.
Okay, so the marker. So what we say is there's one optional marker allowed. They must stay square until the dummy half has cleared the ruck. And this means that the dummy half has picked up the ball and either made a passing motion or taken a step with the ball. So that's slightly longer than the full contact version of the game. I think we do say in the rules as well that if there's nobody there to pick the ball up, the defence still can't move. But the team in possession can't deliberately delay that getting to getting to the ruck just to waste time.
Yeah, I think it again plays into the ethos. We're looking to give people enough room and enough time to play the best
Yeah.
football that they can, and that's what it's all about. So,
Yeah, and often the marker can be an absolute killer. If there's a slow play of the ball and a quick marker, then you finish up your using all your setup just around the play of the ball. So
okay, we'll move on.
So now we've described contact. A defender can, whilst attempting to get to the ball, pull the shirt or pull or push at the ball carrier's arms when dealing with an attempted fend. The attacker can protect the ball and keep the defender's arms at bay, but all players, either attacking or defending, must not deliberately attempt to change the momentum of an opponent by barging, pulling, or pushing, as this is considered misconduct. First offence will result in a warning. Subsequent offences will result in a sin binning of the offending player. And what this means is that that player can only return to the game after a try has been scored by either team.
Yeah, so I think that the thing there, particularly if you're dealing with sort of novice players or players new to the games, don't be afraid to make that call and say that look, that's too much. There was a barge there or a push or a pull, and actually do send them off. They come back on after the next try. Tries tend to be plentiful. You've made your point, and then we can sort of have a much more ethos aligned game, I suppose.
Yeah,
You know, I think that there's sort of two scenarios. Is one, the players would have given away a try because it'll be 7 against 6, and they, or their team scores a try, and they've scored the try without them, and there's a sort of an embarrassment factor to that too. So whoever
yeah,
is
they feel that they missed out, don't they? That they're not that important. So hopefully that gets their conscience to stick to the rules in future.
it's a small penalty. It shouldn't affect like games outcomes particularly that much. But it will stamp an authority on the game and stop people from, pushing the envelope when it comes to contact.
Yes.
So we got some video clips. Let's hope
Okay. They work.
see if they work. Okay, so I'll
Control
talk
these.
about, so what we have here is barging and charging. They're offensive sort of penalties, and then
Yeah.
pulling and pushing, which are defensive normally. I mean, you could argue that there's some of those things can happen either way, but we'll just demonstrate what barging is first.
Yeah.
So that's using the upper body to push through the tackle.
And keep driving on. Yeah. You're pushing the defender back by, it's the sort of putting your bumpers up, like you would say, but what you've done, the tackle's made there, and then you're still trying to pinch yards by pushing them back.
There's really no need for those extra few steps and that elbow and forearm into the chest. Like the tackle has been completed. There's no way you can promote the ball from there, but you're basically just taking out your frustration on the defender. It is how I would sort of characterize.
Yeah.
And then charging.
Challenging.
There's a bit of sound to this one. That's again, it's very similar, but the thing with charging is that you're taking excessive steps towards the defender. So you're picking someone out more or less to run at, which is sort of
you've no intent. You're not trying to get to their side where you're trying to draw them and pass or anything. You're just running charging into the defender.
Yeah. So if you just like watch what obviously this is me and Des doing the
I think on that one we tried to show with the charging that the tackle actually hasn't been made because I don't touch the ball, but I'm wrapping you up, but you're still not allowed to keep charging through me.
Yeah. So like it looks also at the very start of the clip, I have every opportunity to run around you on that giant field, but I've decided I'm just going to come running at you, which is essentially charging. That's not to say that every time someone makes a front on tackle, it's charging. Sometimes there's nowhere to go. But what you don't want is players thinking there's nowhere to go. I'm a bit frustrated. I'm going to run at that guy. And then that, amplifies the sort of the contact.
And it's, I think in both instances, it's the taking the excessive steps, isn't it? It's taking steps after the collision as well that we want to stamp that out. You know, if you're in a situation where you have to take the ball into a defender because there's nothing on, you take it into the defender touches the ball, and you play your ball. That's, you know, and if he's managed to wrap you up, he gets to buy a couple of seconds. If he hasn't, then you can play the ball straight away.
So let's just look at pulling, this is quite an obvious clip. So whilst we said you can put hands on people whilst you're looking for the ball, here in this clip you can see there's definitely no attempt really
to be reaching into the ball. Yeah, that's just a drag. That's just like grabbing hold of them and pulling them towards the floor without, you know, you're not trying to get a grip on them so you can reach across and touch the ball. What you're doing there is you're just giving them a bit of a drag.
Yeah, trying to wreck their t-shirt essentially.
Yeah.
Let's move on to pushing. This is again extremely obvious. I might turn the sound up and we'll play that again. Yes, now it might sort of seem almost silly to have to point this out, but this has happened numerous times where people have decided, I'm near a sideline, this is semi-contact or limited contact. Push is limited, isn't it? I'll just push this person. And you do end up in, you know, situations like this where, you know, essentially pushing someone into the fence over and over and over again. And it's not. It's not part of the ethos of the game.
Like you had the opportunity that you could have reached into the ball, and I had the opportunity that I think I do carry it in the left hand nearest to you. So the ball's actually able to be touched there, and that's what you're as a defender, you're supposed to be doing that. So you're not getting a benefit we're not giving you a benefit if you push somebody over the sideline. Okay, so this is now moving on to the overhead rule. So if the ball carrier raises the ball up to keep the ball out of the reach of defenders, they must then pass that ball from that raised position. If the ball is not passed, the referee will call an overhead, and this results in a turnover. Zero tackle, play the ball. Obviously, I think that's the first mention of it here. But anytime there's a penalty, we don't actually give tap penalties. We give zero tackle, play the balls. Turnover, zero tackle, play the balls. Or if it's the other team that made the error, it's just a zero tackle, play the ball for the team that was in possession. But in this case, what we sort of found with this was that when we first started playing, tall players in particular saw the benefit of holding the ball up above their head, out of reach of the defender. So we had to put a stop to that. We said, like, this is what we came up with. So as I said, the definition of overhead is when all of the ball is raised over all of the player's head. And like it says there, this rule was added to prevent players just carrying the ball out of reach of defenders. Sometimes it's a tough one to call. Like, people might want to force their arms through to try and get a pass on the other side of the defender. They might carry it up near their head, but this is an instance when they're actually deliberately lifting it up above their head so people can't reach it.
I think it's worth pointing out here that it's an overhead carry is the penalty, not lifting it over the head. You can lift it over the head so long as you pass it. That you will see that quite a bit where people will lift it and throw it over the top. It's when they bring it back down again that that you call
that's when the offence occurs, not when they lift it up, but when they don't pass it from that position, or they bring it back down, or try to carry it in that position. Okay, so now again with a series of ones on the play of the ball. So the play of the ball should be made by rolling the ball back with the hand, and if necessary, pushing the ball back to the dummy half with the foot. So your standard sort of rugby league play of the ball seems to be enforced a little bit differently in Australia than it is in Super League, but we tried to sort of make it fall between the two, really. If the game suddenly changed, the international rules said you definitely have to touch it with your foot, then we'd be saying you definitely have to touch it with your foot. But the play of the ball is a fundamental sort of skill of rugby league, and I think we should try to encourage it. Just to carry on with the description of what the play of the ball is, the tackle player must be standing on one foot and the other foot must appear to be assisting the backwards movement of the ball to the dummy half. A failure to be standing on one foot, where somebody just stands on two legs and just rolls it through the legs, would result in a zero tackle, play of the ball penalty, turnover to the other team.
Yeah, so just again back to the ethos, standing on one foot and actually executing the correct play of the ball not only is a part of rugby league and has been for ever since it was invented. It polices that timing of the play of the ball so that we end up a scenario we're looking where it's a like clean game of rugby league, passing and running. So it's not controlled by quick ruck ball that you might find in sort of touch and in sometimes in tag as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So the second slide for the play of the ball. The play of the ball must also be made on the mark. That's the point of being tackled, or within one step of that mark. Now, once it can be a big step, but if you've been if you've taken the ball into a tackle and the person touches it and you take a couple of steps, if you take 3 steps, take 2 steps back. If you take 4 steps, take 3 steps back. We need to sort of play the ball on the mark. If you're running straight into somebody and you're going fairly slow, then you shouldn't be pinching an extra step, taking a step forward after the touch has been made. You should be playing it where the ball was touched. So that's where the mark is, the point of being tackled. Players will be penalised for running off the mark or not returning to the mark before playing the ball. That is like taking more than one step. As I say, it's a big step really, but it's so people are not trying to exploit the pinching ground after they've been touched. However, the ball carrier sets the mark for the play of the ball, not the defender. If a defender stays in the position that they made the tackle and the play of the ball occurs within one step of them, they'll be considered offside if they attempt to get involved with the play without retreating to the marker position or to the defensive line. So if somebody runs past you and you stick an arm out and you manage to touch the ball, you are not the mark for the play of the ball to come back to you. That person's been tackled. If they take another step and then step back, they can play it where they are. So what we don't want is people sort of just saying, yes, I made the tackle here. They still need to get onside. They still need to get, as long as the ball carrier legally does it within the big step of playing the ball, the marker, the person who made the tackle, has to get back onside.
I think to sort of mitigate this a little bit, we did add a little bit of an interpretation that there is one time in the game where the defender would set the mark, and that's a front-on tackle.
Yes.
Yeah. But that should really be obvious. That was added to sort of differentiate between a front-on tackle and pretty much every other tackle, a side tackle, a tackle from the back. In all those cases, which tends to be the majority, I think, just from the way people sort of run the ball. Most of the time, the attacker will be setting the mark, and the defender will be trying to sort of get in front of them. Anyway, we'll move on.
Okay, play the ball 3. So the defending team cannot advance forward from the offside line, which is 5 meters back, nor the marker move from their mark until the dummy half has picked the ball up. This is just more explanation of what we mentioned earlier. However, the dummy half must pick the ball up without delay. If the dummy half delays or tries to draw defenders offside by not picking it up, then the dummy half can be penalised.
This rule is added to, again, back to the ethos of a clean-cut game of rugby league. We want to play the ball that's standard and that there's enough room when the ball's been passed to play it. But what we didn't want is a sort of a that kind of rugby union style where the ball is at the bottom of a ruck and a scrum half or a dummy half can go in and wait. Yeah, that's not really part of it. It's you have to carry on playing, and that's a lot of words to just stop that from happening. But we have to say those words, so we'll carry on.
Yeah. So play the ball forward then, and the player playing the ball must do so as soon as practically possible after being tackled. As a guide, it's expected that the player playing the ball does so within 2 seconds of being tackled. If the referee feels that in his or her opinion, it's unnecessarily delaying playing the ball, this will be penalised. So
Yeah.
What we don't want is teams trying to find loopholes to run down the clock, or we want people to play, and we want both teams. Obviously, rugby league, you sort of tends to be it's your ball for 6, and then it's their ball for 6. What we don't want is that people are just trying to run the clock, score 1 try, and then run the clock down by delaying tactics.
Again, it's a lot of words to just say no time wasting. But
yeah.
And just say no time wasting. That does.
Yeah, but it's specific at that, and it depends on when the ball's been played and the speed of it, and the fact that when we say the ball is back in play, it's when the dummy half picks it up. So we don't want that being exploited. Okay, play the ball 5. If the ball is played with no dummy half, as I said, this explains what we've said already. With no dummy half present, as long as a player of the same team is attempting to get to the ball, the defensive line will still not be allowed to move off their line, either the marker or the defenders. If there's no effort from the attacking team to get to the ball, the referee may blow a penalty for dummy half delaying.
Which is similar to what I said about the scrum half at rugby union standing at the base of the ruck. So yeah, let's continue on.
Okay, play the ball 6. Once the dummy half picks the ball up, they must immediately make an effort to pass or run the ball. Again, they can't be standing still to draw defenders offside. It's not part of the game, and it'll result in a penalty. Dummy half delaying again.
Let's move on.
Keep repeating ourselves. Yeah, keep repeating ourselves on this, don't we?
A little bit, yeah.
If the ball carrier is tackled between the 5-meter line, so this is a new one, the 5-meter line and the try line, the play of the ball takes place back on the 5-meter line, unless it's the last tackle, in which case a zero tackle play of the ball turnover takes place on the 5-meter line. So there should never be a play of the ball inside the 5s. It's either on the 5, attacking, or if you're coming out from your own line, even if you've made the turnover just before the try line, you get the ball back on the 5.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty simple one. I think that might be the rule in some other variants where you have to go back to the 5. So
obviously it's not part of rugby league, but it just keeps the teams apart, doesn't it? And stops that sort of jumping over from dummy half.
Yeah, again, back to like we're trying to make a clean cut game of rugby league that mimics the real game. Like what you would create by playing it from 1 yard out would be a very unfair advantage, and the dummy half could just dive over without ever really being challenged, and it just doesn't work. So back to the 5, play some football from back there. That's the way it goes.
So mishandling. Any accidental forward pass or drop ball, whether it travels forward or not, results in a turnover. Zero tackle, play the ball. The loose carry video and discussion will follow this. What determines a loose carry? The restart of a new set of 6 is to be started upon the ref's whistle or the captain's call. There's no quick restarts allowed. Normal rugby league rules apply to the advantage situation. So if you've made a mistake and then somebody intercepts it and then throws a pass that goes on the floor, they're not going to be penalised because you made the initial mistake. So there's an advantage situation in that case. Where is it?
Here.
Okay, so these are sort of various ways of losing possession, I suppose, and who gets possession. So this video we're watching at the moment would be a loose carry. I'm going to play it, yeah. So they're the 2 players. and the ball's been knocked out. And what we're saying on that is it's the fault of the person who's in possession. They've got to look after that ball. So if it gets touched and knocked out of their hands, that's their fault, and they're going to lose possession. That's a loose carry.
Yeah, I think that the thing to note there is you end up getting a lot of players saying, "Oh, can I deliberately make an attempt to knock the ball out?" And the answer is, yeah, pretty much you can.
Yes.
Like I would say, then a lot of people then try and take that to the next level, and they say, "Oh, well, can I try and punch a ball out?" And the answer to that is no, you can't. So the reason why you can't punch out is because you're essentially running around trying to punch somebody, which is like, you know,
Yeah, yeah. If
piss,
you
then
miss
you punch
the
them.
punch on the ball, and that's
And I would say that's
we're not.
misconduct.
Yeah,
Misconduct.
that's yes.
But that's what we have there is a loose carry. Now there's another video over here about the just holding up the play of the ball, which we spoke about earlier.
Okay. Yeah. So
and
makes the tackle, got the hands on the ball. Couple of seconds. That's slow motion, so it was a bit longer than a couple of seconds.
yeah,
But that is allowed. We're saying this is allowed. So get into the good position, wrap up the ball, hold it for a couple of seconds, and then they play it. That's good.
then this would be the dropping the ball cold after contact. That's the fault of the attacker again.
So that's it. The person's been tackled there. They got to play the ball, and they drop the ball before the ball's been brought back into play. So that's a ball carrier problem. So you'll have a zero tackle play the ball to the other team.
This is how a normal play the ball should work, and this sort of explains a little bit about like when it's played, and then you can't go around until it's been picked up.
That's right. So whilst we have a tick there, because we've got no dummy half coming to pick it up, I actually am not allowed to run around there. There's only two of us there, so but, yeah. So the ball would be back in play, but I can't go because there's no dummy half to pick that up.
And then just which one haven't I? Okay, so this is a little bit of contact that is sort of contentious, but is allowed. It's the sling tackle.
Yeah.
Actually, this is all the contact.
Yeah.
So I'll just go back to the sling tackle. It happens quite a bit.
Yeah, it happens quite a bit. People, what we found is that ball carriers actually allow it to happen. And it sort of makes it part of the game because it gives them an opportunity to offload. They use the grip by the defender there, just spin them around a bit, and they've kept the ball free and they can offload that ball. Obviously, as long as the defender is not trying to drag you to the ground, but is hold of you, trying to then get a reach on the ball, get close to the ball, they're okay. We're allowing them to do that. But as I say, it's something that that we found that the attacking team, the ball carrier, tends to exploit because it helps them spin around and keep the ball available for a pass.
I think that as a referee, you probably could argue that some of that is like pulling, like it's very close to pulling. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very similar to that other video, but if you think on the other video, I think she's dragging you down. Yeah, that's the because I'm not making an attempt to reach for the ball. Now, what's happened in the other video where you're spinning around and you've got the ball available, you got me in a bad position. You beat me, and you're looking to offload.
Yeah, so there is a bit of a fine line between like pulling and the sort of sling tackle, and I think that it obviously as a referee you might just decide, oh, that was a pull and I'll give a penalty for that, but I would encourage you to let the play develop.
Well, in a way, yeah, that's the thing. If somebody gets to a position where they're able to offload the ball, then you're really giving them advantage, aren't you? You
Yes.
don't need to give them a penalty. You're letting the advantage go.
Yeah.
The defender was supposed to be trying to reach in for the ball, didn't quite get there. Drag them a little bit. Now, if the drag is successful and they don't get the offload in, you could just restart the penalty. You could restart the count because you're giving a penalty against the pull to the ground. You know, you're giving the penalty for the pull rather than letting the advantage go for the offload.
Yes, exactly. So okay, I think we've explained that enough there. There's probably a bit of editing for me to do, but I think that
Okay.
worked.
So this is starts and restarts. This has all been lifted really from the rule book, the rules. The game starts and restarts after a try with a tap in the centre of the field. Tap-offs after a score are performed by the non-scoring team. If a ball is kicked dead or lost in the in-goal area by the attacking team, the ball is turned over to the opposition and play restarts with a tap, centre field 5 metres out from the try line. Similar to a sort of a 20-metre tap in the full game. A zero tackle play the ball restart takes place at the site of any mishandling errors or 5 metres in from the sideline if the ball or the player has gone into touch, or where the sixth tackle has been completed. If there's a diffused kick in the in-goal area, again, similar to the full game where you come out to the 20, you come out to a 5 metre tap centre field.
And by diffused, you mean caught on the full with 2 feet in the in goal?
No, I don't. I mean, caught or touched in flight.
Okay.
We've got more details on that.
All right. There's a table here which explains every event, every restart, every restart type, and where that restart would take
Shall we
place.
go through these one at a time? Me, then you, that sort of thing.
Let's try it.
Start the match starts with a tap. Where does it start from? Halfway line.
Yeah. After a try, tap, halfway line. Pretty simple.
Yeah. So ball is kicked or passed or ran over the sideline. What's the restart type? It's a zero tackle play the ball. Where does it happen? 5 metres infield in line with where the ball went out of play.
The ball knocked on, it's a zero tackle play the ball, where the knock on occurred. Pretty simple.
Foul play, zero tackle play the ball, where the foul play occurred.
Again. Offside, zero tackle play the ball, where the next tackle in the sequence occurred. Might want to explain that a little bit.
Yeah, go on then. Explain it to me.
So so if we're saying offside, we'll only ever give the penalty for offside if the tackle then has been completed.
Right, yeah.
It would be on.
It's
It's actually it's a lot like the foul play because it's going to be.
But the thing I think is the thing with it is that offside is you're only giving offside if there's been no advantage.
Exactly.
So if there was no advantage, that would mean that either the team made an error or the attacking team made an error, or the tackle was made by the person who was offside.
Yes, exactly.
So you just give them a set restart, basically.
So much like foul play,
Yeah, set restart it is. We're calling it a zero tackle play the ball, but most of the time it's a set restart if it's the team that's in possession.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Ball kicked or ran or passed over the dead ball line. That's a tap, but it's a 5 metre from the try line centre field tap.
So ball caught cleanly by defender over their own try line, which could be considered diffused. That's a tap 5 meters in from the try line centre field.
Okay, and then the last one, which is a failed free catch over the try line. So the scenario here is that team A kicks the ball, it's in the air, it's got over the try line, player from team B goes to try and catch it, doesn't catch it cleanly, but touches it with their hand, that counts that is diffused.
I think we get on to free catch a little later.
Yeah,
in
we
the-
will do. Yeah, but it's a cross league rule that we brought in. But in this instance, the failed free catch and the caught ball both result in a 5 meter
Yeah.
tap on the 5 meters out from the try line.
All right, moving on the next page. Ball knocked on in the in-goal area. Be a dropout from the
attacking
goal
team.
line.
By the attacking team? No, by the defending team. Sorry. The ball knocked on in the
Attacking
in-goal
team.
area. No. Team in possession. Ball
Sorry.
knocked on in the in-goal area. So you're trying to bring it out from your own end. Say you've got this 5 meter tap, pass it to somebody who's stood in the in-goal area and they drop it. They've made a
That's it.
mistake in the own in-goal area. So it's a goal line dropout.
Probably never happened in the history of cross league.
I think I might have seen it once. Yeah.
All right, player tackled in the in-goal area as a dropout from the goal line.
Again, if you had a slow, like if you think of it, you're starting with your tap on the 5, you've got your opposition defenders 5 meters back. So there's 10 meters between the defenders and the person that you're saying has got the ball in the in-goal area. And they haven't moved and they get tackled. So it's very unlikely to happen.
Extremely
Yeah,
unlikely.
when they get tackled, again, it's they got tackled in their own in-goal area, similar to the full game. So it's a goal line dropout. Next one. Dropout kicked over the opposition dead ball line. This is a very unlikely scenario because you're kicking the ball 60 meters, nobody's getting a hand on it, nobody's trying to catch it or anything, and it's gone the whole length of the field and it's gone dead at the other end of the field. If that in the unlikely event happens, it's a dropout to the team that was the receiving team at the previous dropout.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, the dropout kicked over the sideline with a bounce. It'll be a 0 tackle play the ball where the ball bounced out 5 meters in, it should say, but yes.
Yeah. That really what that means is that the attacking team don't get the ball back.
Like they would in the real game.
Yeah. Anytime there's a dropout, unless it goes, as I said, the full length of the field, it's going to result in a turnover. So dropout kicked out of play on the full. It's a tap because it went out of play where you give it from 5 meters from the kicking team's try line. So they're basically at the tap on your 5 meter.
And finally,
we're saying tap. Yes, would we? Yeah.
that's a dropout kicked out on the full. Is a tap.
Dropout kicked out on the full. Start with the tap.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the only other time we start with the tap, isn't it? Tap on the 5 meters. Tap after a try. Tap after a dropout that goes out on the full.
And then the final one, general kick, kicked out of the play on the full. That's a 0 tackle play the ball from where the ball was kicked, which is very simple.
Ball back, basically, isn't it? That's the sort of call that people use. Ball back because it went out on the full. So we just go further into kicking. So what we're saying about kicking, unlike in some other versions of rugby league or version of touch tag, that sort of thing, there are no restrictions. Now, that means anybody can kick it any distance, any type of kick. The free catch rule. So if a kick is not successfully caught, but it's touched by the hand of the player on the non-kicking team, it's deemed to have been diffused and a turnover will occur where it was touched. If a player from team A kicks the ball and a player from team B does not attempt to catch or even touch the ball with their hands, but instead kicks the ball, they then become the kicker, and the player from team A need only touch the ball with their hands for them to get possession back. So if a player catches a ball cleanly and plays on, the next tackle will be a 0 tackle. But if they play on and they make an error, they will deem to have taken advantage and then lost possession. And therefore, the team that kicked the ball originally will get the possession back with a 0 tackle, play the ball. So what we're saying there is they've taken their advantage.
Mhm.
So if they play on, they take their advantage. That's play on, fair enough. If they take their advantage and then mess it up, they're not still getting the ball back. It's not a free play as such. Like we said before, the free catch rule, we brought this in to stop teams just getting to the end of their sets and just banging the ball at players so that they'd knock on. So what we said was, because we had some novice players playing at the start, and we might get that anytime you're playing cross league. Rather than exploiting that and a team just managing to get set after set after set with the kicking the ball hard at somebody and then not catching it cleanly, we said even if they make an attempt with their hands, that counts. They're going to get possession.
Yeah.
When the catch ends.
Yes. So just on this, on the kicking, the free catch, there was a question about what constitutes a catchable kick. That if it was a grubber kick and it had bounced, then the free catch wouldn't apply, which is not true. A catchable kick is any kind of kick and any kind of catch, whether then you're just picking it up off the ground or whether it's in the air.
Yeah, it's playing at the ball with your hand in an attempt to try. Well, it's not even in an attempt to try and catch it, but that's why we differentiated the hand touch on the ball rather than the kick. Rather than just have somebody, or the ball's on the floor, I'll just kick it out of play or whatever. If you do that, then you're the kicking team. So yeah, we tried to make it as clear cut as we can.
And I think the other thing about the when the catch ends, a scenario that sometimes comes up is somebody goes to catch the ball, is unsuccessful, but then it lands in the hands of somebody else before it hits the ground.
Yeah, from the opposition, from the
that's not
kicking
play
team.
on. It's that has the catch, the attempted catch has ended, and therefore the other team cannot just play on with the ball.
Yeah,
that's an important distinction.
Once the non-kicking team attempted catcher puts their hand on it, touches it with their hand, that's the end of time. That's it. There's no carrying on from that.
Yeah, you couldn't, once they've touched it, you can't then rub it off them in any way.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on.
Yes.
Obstruction.
Obstruction, a very often a problem in the professional game. A player cannot deliberately use a teammate to shield themselves from being tackled. If, however, a defender's direct route to a ball carrier is blocked by an attacking player without the ball, as long as that attacking player does not deliberately move to obstruct the defender, there is no infringement. A deliberate obstruction results in a zero tackle player the ball penalty turnover. So we've got alternate tackle rules. We'll need to just to clarify that obstruction thing though. Under normal circumstances, it's there needs to be. I often use the phrase there needs to be an obvious drawback for the defender. That it's not sort of the. You see that like there was a thing here in the yesterday in the NRL, and somebody went through and got in the way of a guy that finished up like at least 8 yards away from the ball, and the guy went in and scored, and they gave obstruction, and there was no chance he was ever going to get across there. So we're not going to be nitpicking at that and looking for reviews and get the bunker involved and all that. It needs to be a clear-cut obstruction done deliberately before you would award a zero tackle player the ball penalty turnover.
I think my question here would be how much different is the cross league obstruction than the full tackle normal rugby league obstruction?
I would have thought that in the community game, where you don't have, particularly say you didn't have touch judges from the clubs or whatever, if you're just a referee on their own, can't see absolutely everything, have to make a decision on their own, it'd be very much the same. The cross-league interpretation and the community game interpretation would finish up to be pretty much the same if you just got one man making a decision, one man or woman, a referee. So it's only the fact that they've got bunkers and review people in the box reviewing things that things are different in the professional game.
Okay, so let's just talk about that, the alternate tackle rule scenario
Yes.
a second. So in the alternative tackle rules, it takes two defenders to stop a player who's playing by those two rules. So they have to be touched by two separate defenders. But
And it's an any touch tackle.
yeah, but I think that the scenario that comes up a little bit is, and it tends to be a sort of a natural reaction. The first tackler who makes the touch then wants to slow the person down and gets in the way. And this, like we've sort of said, that is obstruction. Standing in their way is obstruction. Stopping a pass or getting to the side or shadowing them is all fine. But if you're actually stopping them from getting past you by standing in the way or trying to push them, then that would be a penalty, which normally would just be a zero tackle, play the ball from where the sort of second person makes touch, because if there is obstruction, they tend not to get very far away from where the obstruction occurred.
Yeah. So this obstruction is a defender obstructing the person who's still got another tackle and another touch tackle before they're tackled. So they're still in play. So the only thing I would say about this one is quite often that person might find themselves out on the sideline, on the wing. And what I would say is that if the defender stands as close to the touchline as possible, gets themselves in that position and makes the touch, they can't disappear then all of a sudden. So it is up to the ball carrier to change direction. Now, if the person who made the first touch changes direction with them to block them completely, then that's an obstruction. But if they get into a position where they think, oh, this player wants to run down the touchline, I get myself on the touchline, they have to run back in field, which sends them towards one of my other teammates. To me, that's fair enough.
Right. Okay. That sort of makes sense. Okay, we'll move on.
Okay.
All right, defensive line and offside.
Yeah, so we've said this earlier on as well. It's one optional marker allowed, 5 meters onside for everybody else. Advantage can be applied. So if somebody was offside and they made an attempt to make a tackle, you can play advantage if the defender just runs on. You can call advantage and then carry on playing. If there is no advantage to be given, then a set restart can be applied. And like we said here, for everything, anytime there's sort of repeated breaking of the rules, repeated offences can result in a sin bin. And like we said about the sin bin, it's player gets off the field until the next try is scored. Whether it's
Don't be
13
afraid to use the sin bin, I suppose, is the
Yes, but we don't want like games down to 4 aside when it started at 7 aside. We don't want 6 people in the bin. But really, I suppose you couldn't. You're not going to send more than 2 off at the same time. The other guy's coming back on, so it can't happen, can it? You're only going to ever get one person in the bin.
Yeah, I think in order to make a point of creating a space people can play in, like sending someone to the sin bin early, they only go off until the next try is scored. You've made your point there as a referee, and hopefully then that defensive line
That's the
stays
last
where it should
person
be.
to get sin bin. Okay, again, dummy half. So a discussion point. Unlike touch and tag and other versions that fall under that sort of category, there are no restrictions on dummy halves. They retain possession if tackled, and they can score without passing. So, like we said, this is different in some other variants of rugby league. But we're allowing the dummy half to have no restrictions, basically.
Yeah, it's come up a few times where because there are restrictions on dummy halves in different games. I think in TRL you can score up to a certain point. I think in touch, if you get caught from dummy half, it's a turnover, and you can't score. Yeah, just to eliminate any confusion, dummy halves are as they are in the full contact game. They can do
full game.
everything.
Yeah, full game.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
Yep. Playing at a ball that has been passed. If a pass is thrown and a defensive player makes a play at the ball, knocking it to the ground, the passing team will receive a new set of 6, starting with a 0 tackle, play the ball. If a pass is thrown and it hits a defensive player and goes to ground, it is deemed not played at. The passing team is responsible for the error, and this results in a 0 tackle, play the ball turnover. So it's happens sometimes down here in Kerry because we've had a lot of people who've played rugby union. They think it's a sort of a major sin if somebody knocks a ball down. I'm always saying, you get the ball back. If I'm knocking the ball down, you get the ball back. So don't worry about it. So it's just to sort of let people know that I mean, I saw it yesterday in NRL games. That right near the end there was stuck his hand out, knocked the ball down when there was a chance for a try on. Personally, I described that as, well, it was a bad pass. It was a bad pass that could be touched, or it could, give him half a yard. He could have intercepted it. So I don't see, it's just something like that's part of normal rugby league, and it's part of cross league as well. And as we say further on, the not played at is a part of rugby league as well. So if it just bounces off you, even if it bounced off your arm, if you're looking in the other direction or something and it bounced off your arm, that's still not your fault because you didn't play at it.
Yeah, so just on this, I think that I think one of the reasons that we've sort of honed in on this is because people are going for the ball, they tend to have their arm around where the ball would fly or where a ball is being passed from. So when they're coming in to make the tackle, you sort of there's a split second between what would be considered a loose carry because the ball was touched and then knocked out, and a ball being knocked down, touched in flight and knocked on by that defender as he comes in, so or she comes in. So the sort of the guideline really was the ball in the air? If the ball was in the air and it was then touched by a defender and hit the ground, then that's a knock on against that defender. If the ball was not in the air and still in the passer's hands and was knocked out, then that's a loose carry, and that's something that comes up regularly. I would say,
it does.
Sort of once every
and just as we as we've said in earlier on, we were sort of encouraging honesty of the defender. Did you get him? What I tend to do when I'm refereeing games is I'll say to the passer, had it left your hands. And if they want to lie about it, that's up to them. But as I say, we're encouraging honesty. If they say, I'd released it, he knocked it down, so it's our sort of set restart. Quite often though, people say, no, it was still in my hands and he's knocked it down, so that's my fault. It's a turnover.
Okay, moving on from there. So to the alternate tackle rules.
Yeah. So I'll go through it. These rules apply for certain players to affect the tackle by simply making any touch on the ball carrier, the same as in touch. When these players are in possession of the ball, they are only deemed to be tackled when two different defenders make any touch tackle on them. The first defender cannot hold up this player until the teammate arrives to make the second touch, as we talked about in the obstruction. These rules have been extensively used to encourage greater participation for novice players and female players who don't feel comfortable with the level of contact in a usual cross-league tackle.
Yeah, I think this slide sort of speaks for itself. But I think one of the things that you'll find is that some players can get frustrated where they're looking to sort of make something happen, and somebody playing by these alternate tackle rules comes in and sticks one hand on them and makes the touch. I think that it's something that people are aware of, so that there may be a time where we say we limit the amount of players who can play the alternative tackle rules to one or possibly two, but that would be a competition
Yeah.
decision, so it would be done by the people involved. Yeah, it's a good rule to get people involved in cross league. I think also maybe down the line this rule would only exist in a sort of a social setting if there was a such thing as elite cross league in the future where we were a bit more strict about the rules and allowed a little bit more contact or something like that, and we split our competitions into two divisions, which I can see happening in the future. Then this rule would sort of probably sit in very much on the sort of social side of the
Yeah,
competition.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, it's often we have it because we had, as I say, we had quite a few female players down who hadn't played much when we first started off, and just to give them an opportunity to not just get tackled every time they touched it or be under pressure, that they could take the first touch and carry on, take the first touch and get a pass in. So it encourages participation.
Yeah.
Like say in a competition setting, we could limit it. You could say, look, you're only allowed out of your 7, you're only allowed 2 alternate rule players at any one time. Or you could say in this competition, there's 2 divisions. Some have alternate rule tackles. The main competition, the more prestigious part of the competition, the more competitive part of the position competition has no alternate tackle rule players. But that doesn't mean that the females can't play normal rules with men. I think, if you've got somebody who played in the Women's Super League, they'd be well able to handle the level of contact that you'd get in a cross league tackle. So they wouldn't be needing the alternate tackle rules anyway.
Okay, we'll move on. Discipline and refereeing.
So control of the game can be done by the appointed referee or by captain's agreement. So what we say captain's agreement means that a player from each team sets the onside, calls out the tackle count, and calls out any mishandling errors or infringements. Each team will also appoint a vice captain. This enables the ref to play and be part of the club, as we mentioned earlier. There's quite a bit of repetition in some of these slides, but it's sort of just getting the points over. Like we said before, though, we would encourage refs to be players as well as refs, rather than the sort of us and them mentality that sometimes happens in the game. So most infringements are obvious, but if there's a dispute between the 2 captains, the decision is made by the vice captain from one of the teams, and that decision is indisputable, despite anybody saying, "Oh, that's out of order." You just say, "Look, get on with it." The vice captain said it was an error. We're doing that. The next time that situation arises, the vice captain from the other team, he gets to say what he thought the thing was, and again, his decision is indisputable, or her decision is indisputable. So the game is always meant to be played in the spirit of cooperation and fun, but in cases of repeated deliberate infringements or dissent, a player can be sin binned. And as we said, that's until a try is scored or sent off completely for the rest of the game.
I think we want to avoid the sent off
We do,
completely.
but because people have come to enjoy it. Now, if somebody is messing about and deliberately keeps breaking the rules, and you've told them and you've sin binned them, then you sort of got to say next time you're off completely and you're out of the competition. But we're hoping that people are not going to be attracted to cross league with that sort of attitude. So there we go.
Yeah, I think a lot of this stuff has been covered probably more by our comments than actual words in the slides. But yeah, I suppose that's because we're kind of, I suppose, living it a little bit where it's always in the forefront. So apologies for the repetition.
So again, discipline refereeing, excessive contact rule. In the event of contact becoming excessive in the eyes of the referee or one of the participating captains, a warning will be issued to both teams. If the excessive contact persists, the remainder of the game will be played under modified touch rules. So both teams will lose one player and the tackle will be affected by a one-handed touch. No markers are permitted and the overhead rule is not applied. It's basically just saying if people can't play across league sticking to our rules, we're just going to have to revert to playing touch. And whilst we've put that in as because that's just the sort of ultimate sanction, I suppose. People have gone there to play across league. They don't want to be forced then to be playing touch just because some people won't stick to the rules.
I think that the thing to do, the thing about this is that it's really about the getting a game finished in a competition, which you can then talk about afterwards. So, with them being around the 13 minutes, presumably you would only end up playing, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes maximum of touch, and then you can sort of off the field sort out your issues. But it's in the interest of getting games finished without any possibility of people getting like coming to blows or pushing and shoving each other.
Yeah.
Just trying to take the sting out of the tail of anything that might be happening.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever been applied, but it's always there.
No.
This is a
So
simple one.
yeah, just as in any community game or full game or anything, jewelry, watches, etc., should be removed, fingernails trimmed, and if there's any blood that needs to be cleared, and the player removed from the game until that's plastered it up or whatever. So simple.
Yeah.
Field dimensions. A regulation cross-league field will have a width of 40 metres and a length of 60 metres. Different dimensions can be played, but must be agreed by all parties before commencement of games. And this also may impact team composition. So what we're saying is, if you've got a field that's, you'd say you've got an artificial surface and it's only 35 metres across, you might go down to 6-a-side. If you've got a pitch that's bigger than that, you might increase that. So then we've moved on to team composition. So men's and women's cross league should ideally be 7 people on the field, plus up to 6 reserves. So that's just keeping the 13 motif. Mixed, whilst cross league can be played with mixed teams, all players need to be aware of the level of contact involved, as I've said earlier. If necessary, Rule 17.2 can be applied. On-field player numbers can be reduced if the field is considered to be too small. I said that already. Substitutions, unlimited substitutions can be made, but these must be made from the middle of the field and on one side of the field between 2 substitution markers on the halfway. This is just the sort of standard, so you don't finish up having 8 players on at a time, that sort of thing. So players coming onto the field must not enter the field until the other players across the sideline. Failure to abide by these rules. Say somebody jumped on, made a tackle, and you say, you've got 8 players on there. That's because they didn't stick to the rules. They're supposed to wait for the person that they're subbing on for comes off. A failure to abide by these rules may result in a 0 tackle play the ball penalty to the non-infringing team on the halfway or where they have the ball, whichever provides the most advantage. So if somebody's sort of snuck down near their own try line, come on as an extra player, make a tackle, they've got 8 players on the pitch. There's no point going back to halfway because they should have come on at halfway. You just give the attacking team a reset up on the line where they already were. So we had a quite successful thing in Bridlington last year. So we came up with some specific beach cross league rules. So the field dimensions for beach cross league are 30 by 30, so it's a square. Player numbers are reduced to 5 per team. Teams are allowed a maximum 1 player on the field using the 17.2 alternate rules alternate tackle rules, so there'll just be one person at a time. All defenders must retreat 4 meters from the tap or play the ball. There's no markers allowed. The game starts and restarts with the tap on your own 5. And that means that there's no need for a mark on halfway, but there is a need to mark both 5s because they're the sort of start lines rather than going up to halfway because it's only a small pitch. So tackle sets consist of 5 tackles rather than 6 tackles, but to keep the regular count in your head when you're refereeing it, and particularly the call of 5th and last, that refs are used to, a tap and what would usually be a 0 tackle turnover becomes tackle 1. So you're always starting from tackle 1 rather than tackle 0.
Okay.
Referees notes, discussion links to rules and videos. Yes, we've got other stuff for you as well.
So if you're attending this course, there'll be an email with all this stuff in it. If you're watching this video on YouTube, I assume we'll put the links in the description.
Links. Yeah.
We could just have a little look at this. I'm not sure.
Would you want to?
This is just a regular mode of play, and about the right level of contact. So,
Yeah.
there may be some referee pointers here. I think both played the balls there with the foot, so that's fine. The tackles seem to be, there's not too much sting in them. People are wrapping time.
Is
Going
that
back
the try? Yeah, I don't.
try line, so they come back to the 5.
Yeah, let's come back to the 5. Yeah, it would be marked. Yeah. Oh, nice to sneak over there without seeing it. Okay.
All
Keeping
right.
the ball out of.
So there's one of the other sort of things that people talk about is what about an underknee carry, because it ends up being, like people end up
Like the
with.
overhead carry, but
We haven't made a rule for that.
no, I think the thing about that is it's at your own risk because it's quite easy to dislodge the ball when somebody's holding it down there like that.
That's a regular forward pass, just slightly in front of him.
Mm.
Sort of gone for the ball there. That was a little bit close to a full tackle, but fair enough. An overhead pass, which was fine because it was passed.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, nice. Get in there. Yes.
Yeah, nice. That's the change. We neat bit of work.
Yeah.
And then this is an honesty call where he's come back to say, I've made that touch.
Yeah.
They've come back and played it there. And that's another honesty call. And then sneaking over from close range. Now, I'm not sure if they fully went back to the 5 to play that.
Go back to that's a small Hungarian 5, that I think.
So you could probably argue that play the ball should have been a little bit further back.
Yeah. It might be an idea as well to make sure that you get the 5 marked so you can see it quite easily.
Yeah.
It's the run into the fence over there, I think. Oh, intercept. There you go.
So the whole time it was set up for that. Okay, so yeah, that's. I mean, I think everyone can get a good idea of what the game should look like, and I suppose how many tries are scored and how quickly tries are scored, and
Yeah, sometimes it's just simple play, isn't it? You can play out, you can score on the first one, but it's that's rugby league. No, that guy had never played before, had he? So, and that would be a thing I would say if you do have novice players. If it's not a competition, if they just got you down to the club and you're doing some refereeing, you don't have to be massively strict on things, but you would point things out when people are making mistakes, whether it's with the play of the ball or marking or getting onside.
Are you referring to the rolling the ball back, coming back to the mark, are you?
Yeah, going back to the mark, playing it correctly. Whether the markers staying square, whether sometimes you can sort of point out things in the game without giving penalties. And just there's the knockdown there. Definitely left my hands knocked down, so it's our ball. Yeah, near attack will play the ball.
Oh, thought he was through there. I think we're just about time up. I think the meeting will probably cut us off, so we might just sort of end it there. Oh, here's a kick. Let's see what happens from that kick.
He didn't touch it with his hands, but then it gets knocked on.
Might just cut it after the next try.
Is it you scoring in the next one?
Oh no, I don't think so. It could be. Ah, nice.
Oh,
So he comes
yeah.
mark. There's nobody there. Plays it, and that's actually that picture from earlier on in the presentation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Anyway,
guy. Yeah.
yeah, we'll leave that there. We might.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. So,
Okay, so that's pretty much everything. Yeah, obviously, the details to ask questions will be attached to the presentation wherever it's being seen, whether this is YouTube or a live session. And thank you very much.
yeah, thank you.